Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm taking a look at that brand new WeiJiang not quite Computron combiner. It's called the Warrior Calculation King, I guess. That's what the instructions call it anyway. It's better than Ares nitrogen. Anyway, yes, this is WeiJiang's interpretation of Computron, I guess. But like at the same time, it's not, because the homage is there, kind of, but it's like an extremely interpretive homage. Kind of more like, in my mind, say Make Toys Cross Dimension series, where it's like you can tell what characters they're meant to evoke, but like they're very much putting their own spin on it. And I really like that about this set. Actually, there's a lot I really like about this set. Okay, so we've got a lot of robots to get through. I don't want this video to be an hour long, so I'm just going to go through it as quickly as I can. And for anyone who wants to see the combine mode, that's not going to be in this video. That's actually going to be the next video that comes out after this, because I really don't want to make this video super duper long. So we're just going to be looking at the alt modes and individual robots in this video. With that said, let's start with this guy, who does not have a name. None of them have names. The instructions only have the Warrior Calculation King name, and like that's it. None of the individual bots seem to actually have any kinds of names, so I don't know. But yes, here we have this guy, and I can't remember the name of his G1 counterpart, but yeah, he's the big guy. He normally forms the torso of the combine mode. Here things are a little bit different though, which we'll see in the next video. But yeah, he's a pretty cool looking spaceship, all things considered, actually. I kind of like this. I dig the two cockpits. I think the use of color is pretty nice. I like the white with red accents and like a little bit of gray and gunmetal here and there. It's got a nice shape to it. I also kind of like the added wings going on there. The big old boosters around the back. And on the underside, you've got obvious robot stuff, but yeah, it's okay. Not enough to bother me. But this does look pretty darn good, all things considered. Now, one constant that is going to be coming up a lot with these... that's a little loose. One thing that I'm going to be mentioning a lot with these robots, and this set in general, is that the build quality is actually really nice. It's pretty solidly made. This feels good enough to be an official Hasbro toy. And like not like the Cyberverse line, like the higher end, like say Siege or Studio Series, maybe even a little bit better than that in terms of just plastic quality and build quality. That said, there's a lot of paint that these things could be doing with. This looks okay as it is, but we'll see as we go on through the other robots that they definitely needed more paint on this set, and that's another reason why I wanted to kind of charge through really quickly to get this video done, because once I'm done with these videos, I'm going to be doing a lot of panel lining and detailing on my own. But anyway, as I said, cool looking ship. I like the colors. I like the contours. There's some nice detailing in there. Just some little line work and tech detailing with like little tech looking lines and whatnot. Venting. And there is some paint on this, don't get me wrong, but there could be more. Cool looking ship. Decent use of color. It's gonna get a little bit sparser as we go on, but for now, here we can see how he stacks up with a deluxe, and it's a big vehicle. Definitely a big vehicle. And here he is with the duck tank. Alright, so because there aren't a lot of videos on these guys that are available right now, I'm gonna go through the transformations step by step. They're not super complicated, but I am gonna try and pick up the pace a little bit, so if you need to go back to go over something again, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to go over it as best I can, but I want to move things along because this is going to be a really long video if I don't. So, first things first, unpeg the nose cone section here, and that just pops off, and there are these little square pegs there. And there you can see how it kind of fits in there, so that goes off to the side. Next, we can turn them around, fold the landing gear up, then want to unpeg what will become the arms and pull them out. And out. These bits here will flip up. And flip up. Okay. Now, getting the head out is a little bit tricky. You can fold this down and you can see there's the head in there. There's no handy-dandy tab to pull or anything like that to get it out, so I find it's easiest to just split the guy. So you want to split it here. This is like the primary locking mechanism. This little bit goes over here, so there's like a specific layering you have to do for this chest piece. But once that's moved, you can just pull them apart. Then we can push the head up and put them back together. Lock this back and finish moving the head up. It's not super great how that has to work, but it's also not the worst. All right, so I'm going to open this up and pop out his fists. And there is actually, you can see when I open this one, there's a peg on the top of the fist that actually pegs into this hole here and keeps it secure. Unfortunately, it doesn't have that when you pull the fist out, so that's prone to wiggling, but not the end of the world. Okay, just angle his arms up out of the way. And now, I'm going to angle the legs out a bit. These cockpit sections here swing down and will become heels, and these are die-cast metal, it feels like. Okay, then we can swing these around and push these bits down. Swing it around, push that down, then open these doors, and this kind of Combiner Wars-ish hinges up, and then close the door up again. And this just kind of, it doesn't really peg, but these bits kind of sit in these little grooves here, and that is what keeps the leg from collapsing in. And it's workable, I just wish that it was a little bit more solid. So there's that. And there we have this guy in his robot mode. Oh, and his nose cone bit. Actually, pull this out and then pull out the little handle here. And that gives him a gun that you can peg into his hand. Okay, now here we have this guy. And he does look pretty cool, actually. I like him. I do have some gripes, though. As far as the overall silhouettes and everything, I think it's fine. And if the arms look like they're a little bit too gangly for you in the shoulders, you can push them in a bit to offset that. And just pull them out as you need them to get that articulation. I also prefer to fold the wings back. And there's some decent detailing here. It's like we can see most of it is from the underside of the ship, so it's not stuff that you immediately saw in ship mode. But there's really not a whole lot in terms of paint, like a little bit on the forearms, the silver here in the midsection, like these vents around here and a little collar. But that's kind of all you get with the exception of the head. Could be better. As for the head, I don't mind it. There's a little bit of a mold flash there that I need to trim off on my own, but it's fine. It's set kind of like... It's weird. It's set kind of far forward, and you can hinge it even further forward. And it just doesn't seem quite right in any case. And this comes up really high, so it kind of obstructs the chin a little bit. It's strange. I don't really know why they designed it the way they did, but the head itself looks pretty good. I'm not super into the expression. I almost wish that was like a mouth plate, but yeah, what can you do? It's fine. It's a little small when you look at it in terms of his entire body. It just makes his head look a little teeny. Like, it's workable. It just, yeah. More than anything, I don't like the obstruction there. And it just makes it feel like his head is kind of set in weird. And the size does kind of make it look like he's a tiny robot wearing a big robot as a suit. All right, and as far as size stuff goes, we'll do a robot mode size comparison with the entire team once we've gone through everybody. But here he is with a deluxe, and he's a pretty big guy. Granted, he is the biggest one out of the set, but still pretty big. And here he is with the duck tank. All right, that is going to do it for this guy for now. Like I said, he's not a bad-looking robot. I like the overall design in a general sense. I think the proportions are nice. Aside from the head, the detailing is nice. It just could use more paint, and that head is weirdly restricted in ways I just don't quite understand, but still not a bad robot. All right, now let's move on to this guy, the car thing. And this one, spoilers, I guess, no pun intended, because car, haha. This is probably my least favorite of the set. I think the car looks pretty cool for what it is. It almost makes me think of like a Batmobile kind of design in the fact that it's so low and sleek looking and has weird boosters and fins on it. But the coloring here is not great. Like, I don't mind the red so much, but there's so little in terms of detailing throughout the rest of it. Like, you get a little bit of, like, you get black for the wheels, and they did paint silver in the rims there, which is nice. And a little bit of silver for the pipes along there. But then, like, you got the die-cast, I think, feels die-cast, engine block up there. The windshield with the windshield wipers for some reason, and the rear windshield wiper are painted, but, like, that's it. Everything else is just a big field of red and then a little bit of this gray and for some reason blue. This stands out in a bad way to me. I'm not a fan of the blue fins. They don't work. Like, if these were red or if there was more blue in the car, it would kind of pull everything together, but it just seems really disjointed here. But the shape is nice, and there is some nice detailing in there. Like, you can see the grille in the front and what could be lights, and this nice engine molding there. Some nice molding along the sides as well. And even the back, you've got some lights and stuff, but, like, none of it's painted. And this red isn't really super great at showing off those details. So yeah, I'm looking forward to painting this guy myself. And on the underside, you've got junk. It's okay. I feel like if I had the skill, I'd love to repaint this as like a Batmobile. But I don't have that skill, so not gonna. But I will be adding some more paint detailing on my own in the future. So yeah, it's kind of a disappointing car mode. But anyway, here he is compared to a deluxe, and you can see he's longer and wider, but actually a little bit, sits a little bit lower, which, I mean, is just, the design of the car. It's okay. It's a decent size, for what it is. And here he is. There we go. There he is with the duck tank. Okay, let's transform this thing. It's not a tough transformation as with the other guy. First want to fold these in. The directions have you do this. I've seen them go out. I feel like it's personal preference, but I'm just going to follow the directions for now. So fold those in. These little red flaps here actually peg in, so you want to unpeg those. And you can see there's a tiny peg hole. So you want to unpeg those first before you start pulling at things. Then I'm going to pull this whole section out, and it'll sort of pull out the little boosters too, but these are not part of what will become the arms. So pull out and then it'll click. There we go. And this, for now, we can just swing up and out of the way. And there you can see it's not actually connected to that assembly. It's just, it comes out along with it. Then we want to bend this, but there's this tab that goes into the wheel well here. You want to kind of twist it out and away so that it, comes out instead of pulling it. Then flip out the hand and fold this little flap down. And same deal over here. Pull that out. Pull that up out of the way. Pull this till it clicks. Twist and then bend. And then fold out the hand, fold down the flap, and there we go. And we'll just get these arms out of the way. Okay. Next, want to pull this up. So it pegs in going down like this, so you want to kind of pull up to disengage the pegs. There you can see the pegs and the peg holes. Then this whole assembly comes down, and these pegs will now peg in they'll sit in these little notches by the shoulders. It's not a super secure fit, but it works. Then we can fold these little bits out just to get them out of the way. And we want to pop the hood section because it pegs in to this bit here. And with that popped up, we can separate the front, and that'll become the legs. And we'll just stretch these down for now, because the hood is surprisingly one of the most difficult things to deal with. What you want to do is pull the engine up, and you kind of need to angle it down so that it comes below the windshield and swing it down so that it clears the hips. And this is the tricky part because these little bits here make it tough. So you have to have things at a specific angle, and you want to come at it from a specific angle. Otherwise, you're going to pop this piece up, which is fine, but, you know, it's annoying if you keep popping it. So angle it that way, fold those little corners in. This comes up, and this will actually tab into the back here. And that just cleans that up, and then these can kind of tuck in. And then for the last of it, you can rotate these around and just kind of push these up. You want to pull down on the front section of the car. And you can see where it separates there. Pull it down until it clicks. It's a soft click, but it does click. Then rotate it around and up. And we can pull out the toe. And that's a foot. And it's not great. Pull it down until it clicks. Rotate it around and pull out that toe. And there we have this thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not super into this guy. First of all, his legs seem way too freaking long if you do it this way. This seems to be the way the directions want you to do it, but they're not super clear. You can kind of adjust the height of the legs by rocking them back down a bit. And there seems to be kind of like a soft locking point, like a very soft locking point right around here. And that kind of, like, it makes them a little shorter. It cleans it up a little bit more, but I'm still just not really feeling this this particular robot mode. It's kind of not great. I mean, there's some interesting stuff happening with the transformation, but I just don't really have much love for this guy. The colors are better, I guess, than in vehicle mode because there's more of a breakup with like a little bit more of that blue here and there. But that blue still doesn't look great with that red. And again, there's a lot of little details throughout this entire thing that you can see that really don't show up really well with this plastic, with this particular shade. And yeah, it's not great. And here you can see, like, you can angle it out to make his chest seem a little bigger, angle it in. That does not like to stay pegged in. It won't flop out, but it's kind of easy to accidentally bump out of place. Yeah, anyway, not super into the gangly car robot. It's not really doing it for me. The face is okay. It's better in terms of placement than the other guy, but there's not a whole lot in terms of detailing. It looks kind of like generic robot head. Like, there's nothing about this that really comes off as having personality to me. It seems like they tried by giving him that little expression. I think that's an expression. But just the design of the head and face is really, really nondescript and kind of blah. And the only color on him is the silver for the eyes and the forehead thing, and it just doesn't really work that well. That blue does not make a great head. Anyway, let's get this over with because I just want to talk about any other figure in this set than this guy. Here he is with a standard deluxe, and you can see even with the legs kind of not fully extended, like down a little bit, he's still pretty tall. Lanky, but tall. And here he is, looking like a complete doof next to the duck tank. That's sad when it looks embarrassing to have you next to the duck tank. But yeah, that's this guy, and in my mind, he's definitely the weakest part of the set. He's not a great-looking robot. Interesting transformation, but just the colors, the overall look of this guy, not great. On the plus side, from here, we have nowhere else to go but up, so let's get rid of this guy and instead bring in this thing, which is, I think Strafe is the name of the character that this is supposed to be based on. And A lot of people I know are not crazy about this color. I believe it was on TFW, someone equated it to popsicle orange, and I can't say I disagree. I'm not super into this color either, but while the color itself isn't great, I actually really like this figure as a figure, and I will explain that more when we get to the robot mode. But yeah, it's kind of a neat little space fighter mode that definitely looks like a robot lying down. But it cleans up pretty nicely and actually hides the robot bits surprisingly effectively. One thing that's interesting about this guy is he's got like a set of double hinges in the shoulder area here, or what will become the shoulder area, that hinge down like that, and there's no discernible reason for it, because if you do this for the robot mode, the shoulders are way too low, and you can't do it for the combined mode because the stuff that needs to connect doesn't fit that way. But I actually kind of like how if you extend it out a bit, it actually changes the silhouette of the ship mode a little bit better. And yeah, you've got gaps here, but when you're looking at it from an angle, it actually kind of broadens out this section a little bit more, and I think makes it look less like a robot laying down. So that's kind of how I like to use those hinges, just to do something with them. And as is the norm with this set, there's a lot of really nice detailing in there, but not a whole lot of paint. It's just a little bit of silver here, a little bit of silver here, some orange right up here for some reason. A little bit of white, a little bit of gray, a little bit of silver on the wings. Like this, the color breakup on this guy is definitely better than the car, but still could use more paint, and the color is not fantastic. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much as I know it bothers other people, but it's still not great. Anyway, size-wise, here he is with a standard deluxe, and he's pretty decently sized. Bigger than a deluxe, definitely, but then kind of spread out a bit more too. And here he is with the duck tank. Alright, let's turn this thing into a robot. So, first thing is, get these out of the way. These little rear hip skirts that don't really seem to have a reason to exist actually peg around these little divots in the hips there, so you want to move those out of the way so that you can move the hips. Then these will actually hinge out on a kind of soft, clicky plastic ratchet to extend the legs. Kind of Combiner Wars style, but not quite. But it's effective. It actually holds in place pretty well. Then you want to pop these out, and these will just flip back. These come out as toes. Those out. Those out. And then, according to the directions, you want to push this nose cone back and up. And it'll actually, there's like a little peg hole and peg there. It'll peg in place there. And this is according to the directions. I will address this in a minute. But there's that. Then you want to unplug the fists there. You got the peg there. Open that up and flip out the hand. Close that up and then rotate the bicep around. And then this just comes back up. And again, we're going by the directions. I will be addressing this in a minute. So open that up, flip out fist, close that back up, rotate that around, bring this back up, which, granted, if you didn't pull it out in the first place, you would just have to disconnect these bits. Then you want to hinge the head back, and there's actually a double hinge system here. You want to angle it back so you can see where it's like more up and have that first hinge down. So that puts his head in the proper position. And there we have Strafe, I think, in what the directions refer to as his robot mode. And this is okay. It's not terrible, but there are things you can do to it to make it much, much better. Like the proportions are just a little bit off in my mind. And again, there's not a lot of paint here. There's nothing new revealed except for the face and like the forearms. And I guess you get a little bit of silver for the guns there, but really there's nothing going on here, and the proportions are kind of weird. It makes it look like he has this like weird large diaper thing, and his shoulders are too close in, and it bugs me. So what I do, first off, They're sort of soft, clicky, ratchety bits, or thooping points, or whatever you want to call them, on these little bits here. I'll bring it down 2 clicks and basically just leave it like that. And this also kind of soft locks at 90 degrees there. And that actually works pretty well as a heel. He doesn't necessarily need it. Like, he actually seems relatively solid as is, but just having that extra bit of support is definitely nice. Now, getting his arms out of the way here. Do the splits so that we can address this nonsense. So, I want to unpeg this so that we can brain it around, and you actually need to clip it back in place because this whole section, and I find it best to pull up here where these ball pegs are, or ball joints, that disconnects and swings down and around and will actually peg in up there. And that cleans up his waist so much nicer. I like this look a lot better. It doesn't look like he's got some kind of weird diaper going on. And lastly, I just kind of hinge these joints out a little bit, just enough to kind of give his arms a little bit more of a, like, broaden his shoulders a bit. And it definitely helps because, you know, you get more articulation and it's just nice. And then I fold these back. And this is, I guess, technically my fan mode for this strafe. And I just think this looks better. It looks cleaner. The proportions are a little bit nicer. They're still not great. Like, he's got these wide hips and large legs. But, you know, he is kind of the lower body of the combined mode. But this looks a lot better to me. The Orange Julius and Vanilla Ice Cream colors, not great. But I feel like on his own, he's actually a pretty cool robot. Like, the colors definitely could be better. And I feel like once I can add some more detailing in here, and I'm hoping I can add some, like, detail, like smaller details in specific colors across the entire set to kind of pull them all together with, like, at least 1 or 2 uniform colors. But, like, overall, he's actually a pretty cool robot. He just needs a better color scheme. And here you can see there is some nice detailing in here, as there was with the ship mode, and not a lot of it's new. There's a little bit of new detail revealed on the hips there, but then you get some new crotch detail, which, to be fair, it looks good, I guess. And it's certainly different. It's nice having different detailing that you don't see in any other mode. And again, I think it helps the proportions, having it kind of tapered down rather than flare out these giant hip skirts. And yeah, the rest of the detailing's pretty much the same that we already talked about. It's got those little guns on the sides of his arms there, which work just fine. I'm not sold on these rear hip skirts. They don't really seem to serve much of a purpose. Like, they kind of sort of lock the hips in place in ship mode, but, like, they still rotate, and they're not a solid enough locking point for me to think they're essential, which has me wondering if maybe I might just pull these off the mushroom pegs at some point and leave them off, see how that goes. I don't know. The head it's not a bad head. It's kind of a weird V-shaped kind of helmet thing. It kind of looks like his head is coming out of an old TV. The head and face design, if you ignore everything else around it, is pretty cool. Gets the job done. I kind of wish that they had painted the visor a different color than silver, though. And there's a lot of detail in there that you just don't see that well because of the orange color. But yeah, not terrible. Definitely better than the car guy. I mean, I think definitely better than the car guy is sort of like the elevator pitch for this particular figure. But no, I think colors aside, I actually really, really do like this robot mode. There he is with a standard deluxe, and as you can see, as is the case with all of these figures in this set, definitely bigger. And here he is. Oh, move in just a little bit more. Here he is with the duck tank. And that is going to do it for the strafe analog. As I said, like, the colors are definitely not great. That orange in particular, not great. And as is the case with all of these figures, there's not a whole lot of paint, and there's a lot of great detailing that's just not really showing up that well. But I'm hoping to fix that on my own in the near future. But really, though, as much as I can gripe about the colors on this guy, I really do like this robot mode. His head looks a little big, his hips are a little wide, but it still looks pretty cool, especially with, transforming him properly by swinging this bit onto the back. I don't know why the directions got that wrong, because this is not how you do it for the, combined mode. I don't know. I don't know why that's a thing. But yeah, I actually really do like this figure, so... Only one stinker so far. That's not terrible, right? So let's move on from Strafe, I guess, to Nose Cone, I guess. And this guy is, I think Nose Cone is the name of this guy, and he's a drill tank, and he's pretty neat looking. Same issue with all the other guys. Not a whole lot of paint going on here. There's like a little bit of silver for the tip there. A little bit of detailing back here. These bits here, which I think these particular silver bits are die cast. And there's that silver bit up there, but like, there's not a lot of paint in any of these. But, while there's not a lot of paint, there's actually a decent amount of color variation due to the plastic. It helps. That color variation, even if it's not paint, definitely helps. And this guy, I feel like, is probably my second favorite out of the set, with not Strafe, the orange sherbet guy, being like my third favorite. And the one I haven't talked about yet being my favorite. But yeah, this is a pretty cool, compact... Oh, and silver for the headlights up there. Pretty cool, compact little drill mode. And I dig the look of it. There's a lot of nice little detail here, which could definitely do with some paint. It's a shame that you've got this peg sticking up in the front here rather than down here, but due to the way it transforms, I don't really know how else they could have done it. Nice detailing, nice use of color, even if it could still use some more detailing, like some more paint work. And yeah, pretty solid little drill. So, move him over there. There we go. And here he is with a standard deluxe, and he's bulkier, but this size comparison actually looks a little bit more on point. That's going to change, but, I think ultimately they're kind of roughly in the same size. Roughly. As I said, though, that's going to change. Anyway, here he is with the duck tank. All right, we are trucking along at a pretty good pace, I think. So let us transform this guy. Now, the head is going to be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to try to get through it. So first off, I want to fold these bits in, these little wheels. Those just fold in like that. This nose cone, splits. And actually, you want to fold this up too and hinge this back. And now this folds down, spins around, and then this will peg in right here. Now, before I finish transforming this, I want to point out mine was a little bit, not misassembled, but things were a bit off when I got mine. This brown piece here that this is mushroom pegged onto and is pegged here that allows this whole assembly to swivel around and down, this was pushed in further. It was actually recessed slightly into the torso here, and that made things really difficult for like lining up and whatnot. So what I ended up doing was like transformed it a couple of times as best I could, and then I just kind of grabbed it as close to the base as I could and yanked out until it clicked into the position it's supposed to be in. So yeah, if you get one and this is sitting recessed, just so you know, that is how far out this brown piece is supposed to be. If yours is sitting further in, you need to get in there and wedge it out so that it clicks into the proper position. Otherwise, it won't quite line up right for the robot and combined modes. Anyway, flip this in, and that will peg in down there. There we go. Okay, so this head is my big gripe about getting out of here, because you can kind of pull it up most of the way, but then it gets caught because there's like these little nubbins in there that catch on this yellow piece here. And you can kind of see when I push it in, it starts to push the head down because of those little nubbins. So what I find is easiest is you kind of have to reach in with this partially forward and pull it up so that those nubbins go inside of that yellow piece. And then, like you can kind of see here, if I push this down a bit, if you pull this up, now it pushes the head up. And that is kind of what you got to do. Then you need to pull this up until it clicks. And I think you have to kind of pull this way a little bit as you pull up to get it to click into place. And once it's clicked into place, it's good, it's solid, you can rotate it around and everything's cool. Okay, that was actually easier than I thought it was going to be when I was when I was like, gonna transform this thing on camera. Oh boy. So hooray for the little things. All right, so finishing this up. The rest is super easy. Just unpeg the forearms. That pegs in to the thigh there. Bring it up, then bring it down there, and this telescopes out, and there you have an arm. Same deal here. Unpeg it, bring it up, bring that down, telescope it out, and then these gray bits here, they peg in right up here, and there's a little bit right here, and they just hinge upward, and that'll unpeg it from both the spots. You can see there's the one peg, there's the other peg, so just pop those up, and that will free up what will become the legs. Now you can just kind of hinge this back and out, but I find it's actually easier to reach in here and use this to leverage the legs apart and pop that up. And when you pop it out, then you can rotate them slightly to get those feet out from under that lip, and then you can rotate them around and it's no problem at all. So that's how I do that. And then just hinge that forward, and these flaps fold around to the outsides of the thighs. Hinge that forward, fold the toes forward, and then you've got the Energon Scorponok style heels that fold out in a way that's less structurally sound than I would like, but it's actually not terrible because this guy's got a backpack, but he's not actually super heavy, so it's not really a problem. Oh, and you can push the fists in a little bit if you want to do that. And there we have not quite nose cone in his robot mode. And in terms of the placement of all this junk, the instructions are, again, not super clear. It seems like they want you to just have this down and have this up, and that's kind of how they want you to do the backpack. I'm not a fan of that. So again, I do a little bit of fan moding, where I actually got to open this up so you can hinge this back. But I hinge this back and rotate this around and bring these up, and because of the way this is set up, you actually kind of have to turn it just a little bit so you can get them past that drill piece, but do that, and then angle this up that way, and then just push that in. And yeah, he still has a bit of a backpack there, but I kind of like the look of that a little bit better, and I like having the drill detail facing forward rather than just the empty void. So that's how I like to do it, but you know, you got options. And I like that you have options with this set. I like a lot of the options they give you with this set. And not nose cone here. He looks great. I was not a fan of him because of the pain in the butt that his head was. But once I figured out the trick, it actually became a lot less annoying. And now, like as I said, he's like my second favorite of the entire set. And he looks great. Like, he's a little bit spindly here and there, but he wears it so much better than the car guy, who I think is supposed to be Lightspeed. I think that's the name. And again, as with the drill tank mode, because they use so many different colors in just the plastic here, there's so much better color distribution, where you've got the dark gray, the light gray, the brown, some silver, some yellow, and it just works so much better here. I still want to go in and paint this guy, as I want to do with everybody, but it works so much better. He wears it so well. He is a really solid standalone figure. Looking at the details, you can see there are some nice molded bits in the feet and all along here, and even some on the inside of the legs. There's some nice molded detail on the thighs, and even the insides of these thigh plates. More going on in here. I like the way these wheels fold in. Again, could do with some paint, but whatever. Forearms are just massive tank treads, which is fun. There's even a little bit of detail that's revealed from the sliding bit. He looks cool. I really do like this guy. It just could use more paint, but this guy is, I think, probably the least dire looking in terms of coloration and robot mode out of the entire team, just because of the different colors that they use for the plastic. That definitely helps. The head is also really cool. This is one of my favorite heads in the set. It's pretty cool. It's got that neat transformery faceplate with the little nubbin sticking out of the front there. The head is boxy but nicely detailed. The faceplate actually has like just a little bit of a point to it, make him seem a little bit more formidable. The red contrasts with the yellow really nicely, though red eyes for an Autobot seems a little bit, I don't know. And there's some really nice detail on the actual, like, face bits here that you can't make out super well because of the yellow plastic, but I feel like doing some panel lining or something would definitely bring that out. I like the head. It's a neat head. It's a neat robot. It's just neat all around. You know, could use some more paint. That head's a little bit of a pain to get out, but once you know the trick, it's not too bad. I feel like the only thing he really needs is maybe a little bit more yellow in a few more places, but that's not essential. Anyway, here he is with a deluxe, and you can see what I was talking about in terms of, like, he's about deluxe-ish size, but dense in vehicle mode, but he expands out quite a bit. He compacts very nicely into that vehicle mode. And here he is with the duck tank. And yeah, I don't know what else I can really say about this guy. He's my second favorite of the whole set, and he's a darn good figure just on his own. So let's say goodbye to not quite nose cone and hello to whatever this guy is. I don't know the name of this one. When I had Make Toys version of Computron, this guy, he was orange for one thing, but he was my favorite figure of that set. And that kind of stays true in this set. This guy is my favorite. His vehicle mode is okay. I feel like the vehicle mode as it is, this like kind of Tron cycle looking thing, looks fine until you get to this, where you've got this big chunky vehicle with this cool silver cockpit section, and this looks cool. This whole thing looks cool. You got the big chunky wheel in the back and then tiny little wheel in the front. And I know why, like, it wouldn't fit with the way he transforms and everything like that, but I do wish, in a perfect world, that this could just be bigger and kind of balance out the big wheel in the back here a little bit better. So the shape is a little bit off, but still not terrible, and there's a lot of nice molding, which could use some more paint. It's pretty much just blue and gray with a little bit of silver here and there. And this one's, I feel like this guy might actually be second in terms of direness with regards to like needing paint, but it's got bigger chunks of paint on it. Makes it a little bit easier to ignore. Yeah, it's just like blue and gray and a little bit of black and then some silver paint. That's pretty much it. But I do appreciate that they painted the spokes on the front wheel here. They painted the rivets, the 4 rivets around the outside of the wheels here. There's little springs back here, and then of course you can see the silver bits up here. And for some reason, they painted this gray, I guess, just for aesthetics. But you can see some really nice details in there. Some really nice tech and engine details in there. The tailpipes, what could be vents, techno nonsense going along the sides there. And like I said, this really nice, sleek bubble cockpit. It's not terrible. It just, this bugs me. But the vehicle mode is not the primary reason why this is my favorite figure. So we'll get to that in a minute. But first, here he is with a standard deluxe, and you can see he's definitely bigger and denser than a deluxe. Kind of spreads out a little bit more than the drill tank. And here he is with the duck tank. All right, transformation time. This guy's transformation is actually kind of interesting. So to start, I'm going to disengage this little flap piece from the back, and this actually kind of want to lift up. And you can see how you've got these little clips here that kind of nestle in there. So rather than clip it in, I go down to engage that. So get that out of the way. Then these will, there's this little gray piece is like plugged into a thing here, which so you just want to push up, and that will disengage that, and you can swing it around, and you can see there's the little peg hole. There's the peg. That's how it sits. And you swing this around until it kind of settles into place. There is actually a point where you'll feel it kind of... There you go. Like you can feel it kind of settle in. And that will keep that from moving around. Swing this up like that, or down, I guess. And then this whole assembly will swing in, and that will be a foot. Same thing here. Push up and swing this around until it settles into place. Swing that, and Swing that in. And then this whole grouping of wheels and parts and whatnot will pull down. And it'll disengage. It pegs in right up here. So you can see there. You can see the pegs. It settles in right there. Bring that down. Then straighten these out. And split them. And there you have legs. Then you want to split this. You don't want to pull down here because this is softer plastic and these pipe pieces are not actually attached to this. So either you want to pull up here, or what I do is I get a finger kind of in here and pull that way to split this apart and just flay it open like that. Next, you want to pull this whole gray piece down, and the easiest way I find to disengage it is to just pull this wheel forward and it'll actually pop this out of place, and that allows you to get your finger in there and then pull it the rest of the way out. You can see there's actually 2 sets of doors here that hinge around. Then you want to push this bit together. You can see this is the head. It splits in half and it lays down kind of in this cavity here. And to swing it around, you actually want to put it together so that it takes up less space. It gives it the room it needs to swing through this cavity here. And then the wheel just kind of sits right there. You can close this back up. This rotates around, and then the combiner peg here will go back like that. We'll deal with this at the end, but first, you can see where the blue bit pegs into this gray bit here, so you want to unpeg that, and you can rotate the arm back a little bit to get it out of the way. Then extend it and rotate it. And the reason you want to rotate it is because this piece here actually hinges up, and rotating it will give it a little bit more clearance. And then this will peg in back here. And then you can just bring the arm back down, and all that's set. Same thing here, disengage there, swing it around a little bit, extend, rotate, flip that up. And again, you can see it's got a little bit more clearance to get through there, and then that tabs in there. Lastly, this, you can just kind of hinge it up and have it like that. You can do this. You can rotate it around if you want to do something like that. You've got options. According to the directions, what you want to do is there's this tab here. You want to get that into this slot at the top of the combiner peg. And this is going to be tricky to show on camera. But basically, you want to nudge it in there. And that will kind of solidly hold everything in place. It's not an essential part of the transformation, but just following the directions. And there we have whatever this guy is in his robot mode, and he is my favorite. The nose cone analog guy is definitely a close second. This guy, I don't know, I like the shoulder pods. He's got kind of a weird long torso, but it kind of works for me. It gives him almost like a caveman kind of figure, and that he's got this enormous torso, big bulky shoulders, but then his arms and legs are a little bit smaller. But then the legs at the bottom are actually decently chunky, and he wears his kibble well. There's actually not a whole lot here. There's this bit, and that's pretty much it. And I like how the exhausts come up to stick out over his shoulders there. It's neat. And as is the case with all these figures, needs more paint. There is more here. There's in the waist section here and in the torso, there is definitely some paint with some gray and some silver and whatnot. You get some silver for the eye plate there, but it's very blue and gray with just a little bit of silver, and it really needs more. But there is some nice detailing there. There's not a whole lot on the feet. There's just a little bit on the tops of the feet, but then you get a little bit on the insides with the wheels here, which they did paint those rivets just like they did on the outside, which is cool. And you get all this detailing on this plate here. And the thighs, weirdly, there's no real detail on the fronts of the thighs, but then you get some nice detail on the sides. It's a little weird just how blank this is. And the waist, again, some nice molded detail and some nice painted molded detail. And then you get in here and it's there's detail there, but it could use some more paint, could be called out somehow. the arms, you get a little bit of detailing on the inner forearm, a little bit on the bicep there, which is cool. I'm fine with the shoulders, though. Like, there's a little bit of stuff in there that I feel like could definitely do with some painting, but I like the big silver bits on the shoulders there, and then the little tech detail on the inside here is also nice. I just like how this whole thing kind of flays out to reveal the arms. The head is a cool head. I like the look of the head. I like the way that the visor kind of comes down over what looks like a faceplate there. I don't know if he's got a mouth that's like right behind the visor or if his mouth is covered by a faceplate, but I don't know. I dig the head. It definitely needs more detailing. Like there's detailing. I mean, it needs more paint because there's a lot of nice detail here that just doesn't really stand out that much. And the hinging is a little weird. The way it sits, it's kind of inside this little collar bit here. So if you want to turn it, he has to look up slightly. It's not the end of the world, but it is a thing. You can hinge it forward more if you really want to go for that Cro-Magnon kind of look. So yeah, that is this guy. And, you know, as I keep saying, could use some more detailing, but not terrible. And it's still my favorite of the team. As you can see, he's about the same height as everyone else on the team, and it works. And one final look, here he is with the duck tank. And that is this guy, whatever his name is. So let's get him situated. We'll put him over here. And let's bring in the rest of the team. And here we have the team all together. I think I need to spread this out a little bit better. Hang on. Okay, there we have the team all together, and they look good together. I haven't really paid too much attention to getting them all lined up, but despite the big guy definitely being the big guy, he's really not that much taller than anyone else. Actually kind of surprised that he's the shortest. But yeah, as a team, I think they look good together. Strafe-ish guy, his orange definitely stands out. It's just the tone, I think, is a little bit off compared to everyone else. Aesthetically, just in terms of like the design, the molding and all that, I feel like it's a pretty solid team all around, with one clear outlier being a huge disappointment. And I feel like this guy, and this guy on their own, totally worth it. I'm already happy just because of that. But they do, of course, have a combined mode, which we will be taking a look at next time. Just taken on their own merits as a team of transforming robots, there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening here. Some of the transformations do some interesting things. The look of some of the vehicles, the look of most of the robots is great. They all could definitely do with more paint, possibly some panel lining, which is all stuff I'll do on my own, but that's kind of the whole point I got this set. Like, I really liked the combined mode look, but felt like it'd be, more than anything, I felt like this would be a fun kind of project for me to do like a custom painting on. But what do you all think of this? From what you've seen of the 5 bots, which one is your favorite? Is there a particular alt mode that you're more fond of? Is there anything about this set that would just turn you off completely? I know a lot of people are not fond of the popsicle orange for Strafe there. And I wouldn't hold it against anyone for being not super into this set, because it's definitely some interesting color choices going on here. But whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like, subscribe, or if you're feeling generous, you could buy me a coffee. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.